Hey everybody, welcome back to the Slypatch podcast. I'm Digital Chimera, you can call me Spencer.
And I'm the captain. You can call me Tyler.
And it's time to
Ready
ready
up.
up.
2 in a row.
It's
Two in a row.
two in a row. That's looking good.
It's almost a streak.
almost a streak.
Almost a streak.
We'll eventually have to break it. Probably.
We will. No, we won't. I will because I'll mess it up.
That's true.
Forget.
I'm perfect, obviously.
Yeah. I'll be like, it's time to ready up. I don't know. I'll point to myself or something. I don't know.
It's time to ready up.
Hey! Double concentra, yeah.
Welcome back to the Slypatch podcast, everyone. It is a beautiful Sunday. The weather is starting to finally warm up, and it's awesome.
It feels like winter where I'm from.
And it's so lovely.
I literally told that to Josiah earlier. He was like, "Are you loving this weather?" I was like, "Yeah, this feels like winter where I'm from." Like, it's finally actually winter. It's not sub-winter.
Sub-winter, yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, no, anyways, getting back into this the podcast, today we're going to be talking about EDH and, kind of our deck building process. We have we haven't actually talked about this yet. We probably have different approaches to building decks, but we also might have a lot of the same things, which I'm excited to talk to you about.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it a little bit, in the podcast before when we have talked about Magic, where, you play the more casual side, more optimized casual, but still, the casual side of things, and I tend to play in the more, like, CDH realm and competitive realm, which, so there are some differences. The great thing is there's also a lot of similarities because it's still Magic.
Yeah.
It's still Magic. There's a lot of similarities in how we build our decks. But yeah, we'll get into that into the meat and potatoes here in a minute. But it's time to warm up.
It's time to warm up. It's the warm-up round, everybody. It's my favorite part of the podcast every time. We're talking about all the things going positive in our lives right now and in the community. Tyler, what's good?
I again, to not sound like a broken record, people are going to watch this and be like, isn't that what we talked about every week? But again, packed out the house on Friday night. Oh, that's a month straight now. A month straight.
Awesome.
Ended up giving away a Kamigawa collector booster, just, because it's so awesome. So, things are going great for the store. That's, again, that's my life pretty much. That's always going to be a positive as long as, positive things are going, forward. Speaking of that too, we're also doing some cool things. We're working on getting some cool things. Got the Dice Tower. We're going to be doing the Dice Tower game here soon at the store. For those who don't know, it's a little tower where you roll the dice inside of it. It randomizes them for you. It's 66s, so there's 30 prizes. So you can roll either a 6, which is 6 ones, or all the way up to a 36, which is 6 sixes. Those are the two statistically more improbable ones, right? Those are the ones that are going to have like your big prizes, like a box, or even maybe like a collector box, something that's like really up there. And then you'll have prizes in between. The cool thing about it is that it costs you $1 to roll, but no matter what you roll, you're going to get something that is at least of value. Like, so the worst, the worst thing you could get is a drink, or something like that. So that's a cool thing we're adding. We're also going to add in a hot buy list. So people come up to me, a lot and ask, about us, whether we buy cards, things like that. We obviously do. That's part of our business. But there is going to be a list of specific cards that I know that I can, turn around fast, things like that, or things I know people are looking for and that they will purchase. And those cards will actually get you more in either store credit or cash when we buy them. So be looking out for that soon. So that's going to come out.
Yep. And I definitely recommend, like, if you guys are ever looking to sell any specific cards or sell a collection, I recently offloaded my almost my entire collection. Just the only stuff I didn't offload is the stuff that is either my decks or the stuff that I knew would put in decks at some point.
Yeah, your staples.
I offloaded everything else to Tyler, and it was a pretty easy process, and it was definitely worth my time. So if you guys are ever looking for that, it helps out the store a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes things easy for you because if it's whether it's saving space at your home or getting out of the game or whatever.
Or maybe you want more specific cards that you want to add to your deck.
Yeah.
You turn those cards that you're not using into those things. Like that's
Yeah.
That's why it's called a trading card game. You know.
Yeah. Trade it in for store credit and buy what you want. You know.
Yeah.
So
The other little just small positive I'll speak on is recently got back into playing some poker. I haven't played poker in a while, and which for you guys is okay. We have a casino here. It's legal here in Milwaukee. For my friends back home, they're like, what? You know. But yeah, sat down at a 1-2 table, made pretty good money. As you know, I won't go into the details of it, but it got me back into my old days of when I kind of did it for a living, and it was cool. It was a cool experience, to be able to sit down and know that I could still play at a high level. So
that's good.
Yeah, that was fun. All
right, and well, for me, I just had my last week of the first term of school, and it went really, really well. I got 100% on 2 of my 3 final projects, which was... I was expecting it from one of those 2 classes. I was not expecting it from the other class.
Which one of those projects was?
The one that I actually turned in today, so that hasn't been graded yet.
Okay.
Because I did it this morning.
Fair enough.
But I also, for my web design class, I made a proof of concept Slypatch website. So, I don't know how far in the future this is going to be. It could be, a few weeks. It could be months ahead. But, there's a possibility that I might work with you and Andy at some point to get you guys a website that could have the hot buy list on it. It'll have announcements. It'll have links to our YouTube, Facebook, stuff like that. It'll also have an events page talking about like our weekly events and more specific events on a calendar.
Hopefully have a link to the TCG player where you can buy cards from us. So.
Yep, I actually have. I didn't show you it, but I actually have that on,
exactly.
on the proof of concept. So
we've been working on wanting to get a website up for a long time. Andy, that's something that he did, as you know, in college. But again, being a business owner, like we want to have time to do a lot of things, but sometimes we don't. And since Spence is doing it in school anyway, and he just showed me the mock-up, thing that he did in like 4 hours, you said?
Yeah, it took me 4 hours this morning.
Dude, it looks fantastic. Like, it would take me 4
And that was 4 hours in like raw HTML, not even using like a professional like WordPress or Squarespace type of thing. So, could look even infinitely better than that.
I couldn't do it in like 4 months. So.
Well, that's what I'm here for. But yeah, no, school was really great, and I get a week off. It's spring break this week. I don't have to do anything tomorrow, Tyler. It's awesome.
What are you going to do with yourself?
I'm going to play video games.
Play a lot of video games?
I'm going to sit around in my pajamas at home. That's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
And but I'm also really looking forward to the next term. I've got 3 new classes lined up in a couple of weeks. I'm taking a web server administration class, a intro to SQL, which is a database programming language, and then taking a class called software architecture. Not to mention, also school related, I'm student leadership in my IT club now.
Nice.
Yeah, last week one of my teachers, Matt Green, he's my teacher for my web development class. He's the head of the IT club. He does a lot of stuff with them, and I volunteered with him to teach a bunch of Girl Scouts how to fly drones last Thursday. So that's how I spent my evening. I was on campus for like 12 hours.
How many crashes do we have?
Oh, quite a few. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. So those things are built to crash because they're, so none of them broke.
They're not the professional like racing ones.
No,
dude, those things. I almost want to do a podcast on those one day because, dude.
Watching
the professional racing ones, bro.
I could grab one from the IT club to like play with, and we could record it.
Hey, in the comments, let us know if that's something you guys are interested in.
Yeah. But yeah. And that's really cool. One of the reasons I'm already student leadership in the club is because all of the current members and student leadership are graduating within the next year, either this fall or next spring. So he needs new people to come in, be student leadership, and also just be members. And since me and one of my other classmates, Leah, we were the first people to really step up and do anything for the club, he's like, yeah, you guys are student leadership, and so now I'm going to CypherCon for free in 2 months.
Oh, dude. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, is that the one that's going on?
Same weekend as Midwest Gaming Classic,
Which is a great little thing to bring up, because I did want to mention, because actually Dan, the owner or the person who runs Midwest Gaming, actually finally graced me with his presence on Friday.
Yeah, I got to meet him finally. He's an awesome guy. I love him.
Dan's amazing. We sat in the shop until 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Just catching up, talking with some other guys.
Which, by the way, I know last week was supposed to be Star Wars, and then this week was supposed to be Star Wars, and this week is still not Star Wars, because he decided to get home at 7 in the morning yesterday, and we had to cancel with Nick and Mello again, but we're gonna do it next week.
Yeah,
and
it's a little harder, because like when we are coordinating with one guest, it's a lot easier to try to get on schedule. When you're coordinating with two guests that also live in 2 different time zones,
yeah,
it's a little harder. So
it is a little harder, and I don't blame you for it.
We definitely will get together with those guys and have that coming up soon. The great thing is it just builds the anticipation, But anyway,
Star Wars next week. Star Wars next week. Star Wars next
just keep coming back looking for it. But no, so to talk about the Midwest Gaming Classic again, me and Dan talked about some great things. We're gonna, and we're gonna have some things coming up. More information on that during the podcast, and actually in the next couple of weeks. So we are gonna have the Star Wars one, but in the next couple of weeks, we don't know which one yet. We will have Dan on.
Yep.
Dan is actually gonna come sit down here in my basement, in my dungeon, and record with us and talk about MGC and give you guys more of the information that I don't have, because again, I know my side of it, like I know what we're supposed to do, but I actually didn't get to go. Obviously, we talked about this, the one in November, because my father passed away and I had to handle that. So this will be my first one I actually get to be at.
Yeah.
Because I was originally supposed to be at the one in 2020. Well, COVID happened. And then last year, that happened. And then, so this is my first year I actually get to be at it. So I'm super excited for that. And that's really cool that the CypherCon's going on. And they're actually going on like in the same area, right? Like
it's in the same building.
Yeah, in the same building. So like you get to like.
Yeah, I'm getting a roommate with Max, who was on a couple of weeks ago. I'm getting a room with Max down at the Hilton, and we're gonna spend the whole weekend there. And I have 2 cons to go to.
Yeah.
And one I get to go to for free.
Well, I might be able to get you in one day for free if you come work for me for a couple hours.
Deal. I was going to volunteer my help anyways, so.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, Come work for me for a couple hours and then go check out the rest of the con.
Anything to help out the squad, man.
Hey, we got to do what we can. So, those are our warm-ups.
Those were our warm-ups. Everything positive going on, Everything's good. Everything's good in life.
That's not even everything positive. That's a great thing, too.
That is the most positive.
Yeah, it's some great positive stuff, but... Yeah, we have some other. Like I could talk about my friendship with Spencer every week on warm-ups because it's a positive thing. But yeah, so now it's time to get into the
campaign. It's the meat and potatoes, everyone. It's what you love. It's what you come here for. And today we're talking about EDH and deck building.
Yeah. So we obviously as those who patronize the store, you know that we specialize in Magic the Gathering. You know that obviously we talk about Friday night, right? Like Friday night is our Commander night. That's the only event we have. We started out when we first opened the store. It was Commander and Draft, and quickly had to cancel doing drafts on Fridays because of the just enormous amount of people.
Number.
Yeah, just the sheer number of Commander players that we had, and to the point where again we had filled every seat in the house. Had to break out the little table again. I sent Nick another Nick reference, right? I sent Nick a picture, and I said after I tagged underneath, I said, I swear I'm not sending you the same picture over and over. So I'm having to take one from a different angle every week, so just so that he knows, like it's not like the same picture. It's not, and luckily some people are sitting in different positions, so I was like, look, you can tell this picture, this person's sitting at this table, but yeah, it's like. It's awesome, but yeah, Commander is the most popular format in Magic. Wizards is actually starting to realize that.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
It used to be again when I first started playing, it was Standard. Like Standard was the thing. That's what FNMs were. It was Standard Magic. So Standard was for those who don't know what Standard is, it's a rotating format. Every it's switched a couple times. So like it used to be every 2 years, then it was every 18 months, and then it goes back to 2 years. I don't know. It's weird, but I don't know because I don't play standard anymore. Honestly,
it's been 2 years for as long as I've been playing.
Well, no, because even just a couple years ago, it was 18 months.
Really?
Yeah, with like Throne of Eldraine and all that stuff, it was 18 months. They just recently went back to the 2 years.
Are you sure?
100%. I mean, do I run a game? Like,
I mean, yeah, but I also play standard on MTGA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been 2 years every year that I've been playing.
But MTGA has only been out for a couple of years now.
No, it's been out since 2018.
Okay, that's still just 4 years. Like,
yeah, that's before Throne of Eldraine.
No, Throne was Throne was included in that loop.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
I'm confused now.
Okay. So prior to Arena, there was a small period of time where they made the rotation every 18 months.
Oh.
And it was really weird. It messed everybody up because we were all used to the 2-year thing, right? And they did, like, it was only for, like, probably a year and a half. Like, I think that was...
So was this like during Ixalan?
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, Throne of Eldraine, when Throne of Eldraine came out is when it reverted back. Or somewhere around there. That's how I remember it, because that's when it reverted back to the 2-year thing.
Oh, okay.
Is what I was trying to say. Or it might have even actually been Ravnica. I just remember that. I remember when Throne of Eldraine was in Standard, it was like, oh, this isn't going to rotate for 2 years now, as opposed to 18 months like the other sets, you know. So yeah, it was like Ixalan and that kind of stuff was in that 18-month like
gotcha.
Weird window.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Friday Night Magic used to be Standard. Like that. Yeah. That used to be the go-to format for Standard. Or I mean, for Friday Night Magic was, you know, that format, and so it was, you know, 60 card deck, up to 4 copies, you know, that kind of thing for constructed. Our format, obviously, completely different, you know.
Very different. It's one of the Eternal formats.
Yeah, it's an Eternal format. It does have a ban list. It's a singleton format, excluding certain cards like the Relentless Rats, you know, Petitioners, Shadowborn Apostles, you know, cards that specifically say you can have any number of these in your deck, and then also basic lands. You can have any number of copies of basic lands in there. But yeah, Commander is something that I've played for basically actually since the inception of it, because I remember buying the very first Commander decks that came out.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, because the way they're boxed now is so much different.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's true.
But we had started playing. We called it EDH at the time because it was actually referred to as, so EDH refers to Elder Dragon Highlander. So that was the first of the format. And the original EDH decks, you had to have one of the Elder Dragons as your commander. So like, you know, Nicol Bolas and what is
Palladium Wars, Arcades.
Arcades, there we go. I was thinking of the Butt Dragon. That's how I remember Arcades.
Big booties.
Big booties. Yeah. So yeah, originally, you know, that was how the format went, and then I remember my very first commander deck that I actually made for myself was Chromat.
Oh, okay.
Loved me some Chromat because he was 5 colors. I could play all the good stuff. You know, I was like, I get to pick a little bit from every color and have the good stuff in there. I literally had a point where I played Chromat for 2 years and never cast Chromat. Because I was
just for the color identity.
It was literally for the color identity,
That's hilarious.
Because he looked cool over there, you know.
Yeah.
So I always have a special place in my heart for Chromat. Like when I see him.
I've considered building Chromat a couple of times.
He's awesome, dude.
I think he's
actually
really cool.
He's actually really great as a commander in general. But
yeah.
But yeah, so you know that's so EDH is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the deck building standpoint from. Well, not just the deck building, but our experiences too, and how we played in the different formats. Again, you more casual, me more competitive. But we do want to talk about some of the differences in how the decks are built, and the process we go through when we're looking to. We don't want to do the same thing that because again, we love Jimmy and Josh at the Command Zone. There's other podcasts out there. We don't want to copy them. If you guys actually want a true breakdown of how
how to build an EDH
how to
deck.
build an EDH, like go check out the command zone.
100%. Like, what I'm gonna talk about later is I based my whole approach to deck building off of that video that they did probably about a year ago now, which was
they've done multiples and they've updated.
That was an update to a previous version of that concept, but they did a video where it was very much more like numbers based, which I count the numbers for only technically 4 different kinds of cards. Mm-hmm. I'll get into that later, but I don't focus as much on the numbers as they do, but there, a lot of people have totally different approaches. I know, my friend Kurt, he builds really casual decks, much more casual than I do, and he picks a theme and he just goes with it. Does not care if it's bad at all, but he just builds really fun decks. His
decks are so fun, though.
And sometimes they are really good, but it's not like... It was never like, I want to stomp people with this. It's, I want to do something with... For example, he has a suspend deck with Joya of the Gitu. Yeah. And it's just all Eldrazi. Oh, that's the whole thing. It's not good, but it's fun.
I played against Kurt the other night. Me, Dan, and Kurt sat down in a pod.
Yeah.
And he played his Krark the Thumbless with Shakashima.
Yeah.
And all he wants to do is make as many Krark the Thumblesses that he can, and then cast spells and like either copy them or bounce them. He just I think he had like 30-something Krarks out. Which at that point I sat down. I didn't realize what power level they were playing at.
Yeah.
And again, most of my decks are super competitive, so I actually I won on turn 4. With my deck, and they were just now establishing their boards, so they were like, well, we're gonna, is it cool if we just finish the game out with ourselves? And I was like, yeah, like you guys, I did my thing, I was like, I didn't realize, what the power levels were, my bad, kind of thing. But yeah, so they finished out. So I was walking around doing some other things, and I walked back over, and that's when I see like the 30 Krarks out, and I'm like, Kurt, what did you do? He was like, a copy Krark, because the way the ability works with Shakashima is he gets to copy Krark, and the legend rule doesn't apply, so he can make as many copies, that way. And I was just like, "Holy crap, dude! Like this is crazy."
Yeah.
And
one of the things that one of my favorite decks of his is he built a deck he calls "Stop Hitting Yourself." And the entire point is he's got all of the creatures that say when this creature deals damage or is dealt damage, deal that much damage to target opponent.
Like Stuffy Doll.
And then he casts like things like Blasphemous Act and shit. It's so hilarious. It's so funny. It's so funny. And but yeah, he has a much different approach to building decks than I do. Like, because I build decks that are like gonna play at some semi-competitive level, and like they're going to work every time because I don't like my decks not working. But Kurt plays the game very differently for me. He's like, I want to do this crazy thing, and if it doesn't work, I don't give a fuck.
We have another guy at the store. His name is Thor, and Thor's very much like that. So Thor likes to play very thematic decks. He had. Oh my gosh, why did my mind just go blank? I can't remember the card. I think it's called Divine Intervention or something like that. It's a card that is meant to draw the game. Okay? I want to say, do me a favor real quick. Pull up. I want to say it's called Divine Intervention. Just pull up like TCG or something. But anyway, he also has like a Chaos deck where the entire point of the deck is just like for... anything that you think you're going to do, you're not actually doing it. Yes, so that's a card, Divine Intervention. So it says it's an 8 mana enchantment in white. So it's 6 white. Divine Intervention enters the battlefield with 2 intervention counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an intervention counter from Divine Intervention. If there are no intervention counters on it, the game is a draw. Okay? And then he runs like all like Sterling Grove and all that stuff to like keep it, where people can't target it. Okay? And he has like all like the heroic interventions and stuff like that to make sure that his stuff is indestructible. All right, and his whole point of playing that deck and that card is he just wants the game to end in a draw.
I have a question for you, Tyler, as the store owner.
Okay.
If someone played this in the main pod where everyone gets a pity pack, but then the winner gets 2, what happens if the game's a draw?
Then all of you would roll for the pack. Is it like because you all get your pack, and then at that point it's like, well, now you just got to roll. And high roll wins. Yeah.
At least you didn't have the cop-out answer of everyone gets one pity pack.
No, because
that's no fun.
No, the prize support's there for you guys. Like the prize support's built in for you guys. So no, I mean someone's gonna end up with a pack, but or we could do like a Survivor style, like vote someone off the island kind of thing. Like, all right, everybody put in the name of the person you think should win. All right, you all wrote your own names down. Okay, look, you can't do that anymore. Don't write your own name. You gotta write somebody else's. We do something like that. But,
that's funny. Yeah. I like it.
But yeah, so like Thor is like that as well. But Thor's decks are optimized for those things too. Like it's not super casual. Like they are very optimized. They have a theme, but he knows what he wants to do, and so he plays some really he plays a lot of cards that you just don't see a lot of times, but because they go with the theme of what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Greg Cherrick, you probably know Greg too. Big beard, long hair.
Yep.
Okay. Greg's like that with some of his decks too, although his favorite color to play is black. So like a lot of his decks are going to either be black or Rakdos that are doing that same type of thing. But Greg does the same thing. He loves playing in the more casual stuff. He has decks that can compete and so does Thor. But they both have decks that can play at the competitive level, but they enjoy what Magic truly is at its heart, as opposed to just trying to win. It's playing a game and getting to do cool stuff. So yeah, I mean, and that's why I love when Thor and Greg are there. If I have a new player that comes in that like has never played at the store,
that's a good idea.
Or someone who who's just like newer to the game, I always put them in a pod with Thor and Greg. Because I want them to have that experience, because they will play. They don't care. Like they're not there to win the packs or anything like that. They have fun with it, but they're there to play Magic and have fun with people, and that's why I love having them at the store. Because I can always go to them and say, hey guys, I'm gonna put this new player with you guys. Can you play, something like this is the deck that they have. Play something at this power level, and they're like, yeah, sure, And there's times where that new player will win against them, but they don't care. They're just like, okay, cool, And so it's really cool to have.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really cool that we have that diversity in the store, because then we have people like Kian and Kevin and Bryce, AJ, Adam. I'm probably forgetting some other people. Mike Lukey will play both. AJ will play both sometimes too, because he actually was nice and went over to the.
I haven't seen Jace play too much with those guys, but I know he has a lot of more high-powered decks.
And so that's one of the things too, though, with Jace is like, Jace is on that borderline, and I've almost gotten to the point with him to where I may have to move him into the CDH solely because I know he likes to play the more casual stuff, and he does have more casual stuff, but he's also had a tendency here lately to play some more stronger decks against like our casual people. And it's great, like, hey, and people come out to F&M for many different reasons, okay? And some people come out to win packs, who knows, whatever. But, there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, you've won, like, 5 weeks in a row in the casual pod, and not even just winning, but you're winning and it's not even close. Okay, you need to step up to the big boy table.
Yeah, he slugged us the other night. He tox rolled us. And
exactly.
It was rather dirty.
Jason, I don't know if you watch these or not, but I'm gonna have that conversation with you next week.
No, I love playing with Jace because he's also very open about that. And here's the thing: when he slugged us, he was like, "Okay, is it okay if I play Toxroll?" He said that. He showed us the card, and he's like, "I tried to build this as casually as I could, but while still being like optimized." And he built it Voltron, like it's control Voltron. The idea of that deck, the way he built it,
is to try to kill people with Toxroll.
Remove all your creatures using Toxroll and using other cards that he has, and then kill people with commander damage. And I'm like, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And still, though, I was okay with it.
The card is very oppressive.
Oh, it is. It was super oppressive, and I couldn't deal with it, and neither of the other people couldn't, so we lost. We ended up scooping, I think, probably turn 6, because he played it on turn 4, but,
yeah.
But, like, it was still fun, and he still had that conversation, which is something that's very important in my opinion.
So we refer to that as it's called the Rule Zero.
Yeah.
It's the Rule Zero conversation where we want you to sit down in the pod and have that conversation of like, what power level are we playing? Because we want everyone to have fun. Like, it's yes, some people their version of fun is winning. Like Cody, for example. Cody Cody just likes to win, and so that's the only way he has fun, sort of. So, that's some people's thing. I know Jace is not that way, and that's why I'm going to have the conversation with him. But Jace is also one of those people, though. Again, where I know that just like Greg and Thor, I could go to him, and because he does have that wide range of decks, and I could also sit him in that same pod with those guys and be like, because the thing is Thor and Greg have decks that can keep up with any of his stuff too, and they would police him, and still make it to where the new person would be able to have fun. So but at the same time, I also know that he would play down if needed. So
yeah, and he usually does. When he sits down for casual games, he's like, I have some really fair decks if that's what you guys want to play. He has a deck that's just stompy. He has a Tatsunari deck that he just built, which is like kind of Voltron, like auras and stuff. And that's a fun deck to play against.
Has anybody gotten that bounty yet, by the way? No?
No, so he didn't play Tatsunari in the main pod. If he had, he would have won.
There you go, see?
And last week, or not this last week, but the week previous, I forget his name. He was really cool.
There was another guy who had it, though.
There was another guy who played Tatsunari, but he lost, so... But yeah, people are chasing it.
Still rooting for you guys to do it. So
still rooting for you guys.
I personally would love to make that deck myself, but my problem is again, because I build towards that CDH level, is like I would build that deck and it would just I would not feel like it would be fun to sit down with other people at the casual level. Now, speaking of that though, and I'm actually trying to build a very casual deck right now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so I had a conversation with one of our other players, Savio, if you know Savi. I was having a conversation with him the other night, and I was like, "Look, man, because all of my decks are super competitive, and he's trying to start building on the competitive level. He's always been in the more casual, but he wants to build to the competitive. So me and him were working on a deck for him. So I was like, well, Savi says I'm helping you with that. I was like, I want your help with something, and I was like, tell me what you think I should build to try to build a more casual deck, right? And the problem is like if you look up CDH deck list, no matter what color combination you look up, there's going to be a CDH level on that color combination, right?
Yeah.
But he goes, and it's funny that he says this because I'll tell you a little story here in a second. He goes, you can't play blue or black. And I was like, okay. He's like, because take away counter spells, take away your tutors, most of your tutors, right? I was like, okay, so play Naya, right? So I'm working on I'm trying to make a casual Naya deck right now.
Who's the commander?
I'm going to use Marith.
Okay.
Which can be, he's like a C tier or something like that because there's some combos you can do with him. But I'm doing it as 1/1 counters matters.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to do straight up just 1/1 counters matters, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But funny story, a couple of years ago, I know I've told you about Jack Taddy, my best man at my wedding. You know Noah Murtha, right? Mm-hmm. You know Noah. And then we had another buddy at the time, Sam, who we did a little league every time a new commander set came out. Me, Jack, and Sam all worked at Mattress Firm, and then of course Noah was like my little brother. He still is. He used to live right over here off of Greenfield, like 85th and Greenfield over here, so he was really close. Now he's out in the boonies somewhere. But plus he has 3 kids now, so he got the new twins. But so he doesn't have as much time. But anyway, we used to play a league together. And when the set came out that had it had Kadena, it had
Anji,
because Jack played Anji. The red, white, blue one, the flashback deck. Savin, and then the Naya deck was Garrod or whatever his name is, right? Or Jared or Garrett.
Garrett.
Whatever, I don't know how you pronounce it. But so what we would all do is we would all try to take dibs or on who wanted what, right? Or we would vote amongst ourselves on who we thought should have what deck, right? And of course they did the same thing to me. Again, they were like, you can't have any of the decks that have blue. So I couldn't get those two. And then they were like, dude, we're not, they looked at Anjay because of the whole madness thing, in which Anjay quickly became a competitive CDH deck, right? Like, well, we're not going to give you that one either. we'll give you the one that's creature based. And I'm like, all right, cool. So the way we would do the league is it was very similar to like Star City Games thing that they do, where it's like 4 points for first place, 3, whatever, right? And then based on the points each week was how much money you could add to the deck, but we also had a limit for like the entire league. Like you couldn't add more than like a certain amount, right?
Okay.
And you could save up your money to buy certain cards if you wanted to. It was also the number of cards you could get as well. So like if I got fourth place, I could put up to 4 cards and $20. Okay. And then it was like 3, 2, 1, and it was 15, 10, 5, right? So it was $5 per card, basically is how it worked out, but you could add more cards if you lost more, stuff like that. So I purposely lost for a couple weeks, okay? And just, because I had a plan, and I came up with it with Nick. I took infinite turns in Naya. I took infinite turns with no blue.
How did you do that?
So it's convoluted, and it takes multiple cards, but...
I have an idea, but...
So there's a card called Will of Sun and Moon. It's a 2-mana enchantment. It's enchant target player, and cards don't go to their graveyard. Instead, they go to the bottom of that player's deck.
Okay.
So I enchant myself with it. And then I need a card. There's an equipment called Sunforger.
Yep.
That you can unequip from something to search your library for a 3 CMC instant, 3 CMC or less instant, and get to cast it for free. Okay. And then you have Final Fortune, which is a 2-mana instant, take an extra turn, but at the end of that turn, you lose the game.
And then Sundial.
No. Angel's Grace. The 1-mana instant that says you can't lose the game this turn, and if your life total would go below 1, it goes to 1 instead, and it has split second, so it can't be countered.
And then Isochron?
No. You need those cards and 1 creature and 12 mana. As long as you have 12 mana, because you have to be able to re-equip a creature. So you equip the Sunforger.
Yeah.
You unequip it.
Oh wait, is it total CMC 3?
It's
instance?
No. No, but you have to equip and unequip it twice. Is how this works. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I would equip the Sunforger. I unequip it. I go play Final Fortune. Okay. I re-equip it. All right, and then I pass to my next turn. At the upkeep, I unequip it, go get Angel's Grace, play it, and then re-equip, unequip, play Final Fortune, re-equip. And so it takes a long time to do. Again, it takes a lot of mana. Like it's a hard combo to pull off. But I ended up taking all the turns, and they were just like, "We made sure you didn't have blue just for like bullshit like this, and you just took infinite turns in Naya. Like, what the hell?" So,
well, wouldn't Sundial also work with that?
Sundial would work.
So yeah, one thing that I was thinking is,
but the problem is with Sundial is like I would need to have like an Enlightened Tutor or stuff like that to go search it out, and it's harder to establish the combo with Sundial, whereas having those 2 instants and me, and the Sunforger.
Yeah, because you can just go get them from the deck as long as you have enough mana.
Correct.
But it's less mana intensive if you have Sundial or Isochron with either the Final Fortune or the Angel's Grace.
Yeah, it's just that I knew like my mainstream focus was to have those 4 cards.
Yeah.
And so I lost for a couple weeks just to have enough money to buy those 4 cards and put them in the deck. And then like literally the first week I put it in there, boom. Because there were some cheaper cards that I got to put in, like Open the Armory will go, get me the Sunforger and stuff, and it was only like $2 as opposed to like $30 for the Enlightened Tutor.
That's funny.
So yeah, I put a couple of those type of things. Yeah.
God damn it.
I mean, you can thank Nick Robinson for that because he's the one that helped me figure out that combo. So,
fair. Well, I had an idea for part of, obviously, to those who've watched the show before, we do have a couple of segments, but I also kind of had a little bit of idea to do a couple of, sort of segments / just questions for us to like kind of, get the creative juices flowing. And
this is still in the meat and potatoes side. It's still in the campaign, but yeah,
it's true. But I wanted to ask a couple of questions that we could both answer.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wanted to ask first, what is the deck, or at least the moment in a deck that you are most proud of in EDH?
Wow. I mean, the Naya one is up there. It's definitely up there. Probably. Wow. That's a really, because I've been playing for so long.
I know. You've been playing for at least EDH twice as long as I have.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to be I'm going to answer the question, but it's a reverse moment.
Okay.
Okay? And it's not the most proud of was of myself, but of someone else.
Okay.
Which, again, is Nick.
Okay.
Okay. So check this out. So I had taken a break from Magic, even though I've been playing for a long time. I had taken a break, and I got back in. Me and Nick actually met on Craigslist looking for people to play. Because this is back before social media was as big and stuff like that. And this is when Craigslist wasn't as corrupted in what it was. So we met on Craigslist. We started playing with each other, and I realized right away, like, the difference in, like, level of play. Okay, like, I'm an intelligent guy, and I can learn how to play, and I'm up there with him now. Like, me and him are on a very similar, like, playing field now. But at the time, it was like, I'm playing like casual angels and vampire decks and stuff like that. Just theme type stuff, and he's like straight focus. He's won like he won like Kentucky States one year and stuff like that. Like, this guy's like accomplished, right? So he had this Child of Alara commander deck that still to this day he's had other decks that are really good. That is still the most impressive deck I ever played against because it was just so good. Okay, and so I built a deck. I was like, but the thing was, is he used a lot of his graveyard, right? And he had a lot of combos in the deck, things like that. So I built a deck that was solely based around trying to mill him and then exile his graveyard, so that he would not have those combo pieces to beat me. And I didn't tell him about it. And we sit down one day, and he's like, and he sees this new commander. He's like, what is this? So we start talking about it. He's like, what's the goal? Like, what are you trying to do? And I was like, I want to, like, the main card in the deck I wanted to play against him was Traumatize, because it's half the library. I'm like, I'm going to traumatize you, and I'm going to, like, Tormund Crypt you, or, have Leyline of the Void out or something, something like that. Just,
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. So we shuffled up. He takes half his deck, turns it face up, and says, okay, these are in exile. Before he even draws his hand. Okay? And then proceeds to stomp me into the ground with half of his deck. Not knowing, again, like, because he would draw fetch lands, not knowing what colored lands he still had left in his deck, anything like that. Destroys me. Absolutely destroys me. And crushes my dreams as a deck builder in that moment. Because I'm like, I just built this whole deck. He just did what I asked, what I wanted my deck to do on turn 0. And still just wiped the board, man. It was just terrible. And so that is like one of the moments, like again, it's a reverse moment, but it's like, it's one of those moments I just remember for all time. It's just like, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like, you're my best friend and I love you, but God, I hate you right now. Crushing my soul.
Dude, that's fucking hilarious. I love that.
All right, what about you?
So, there's different answers for, like, of all time and, like, right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, of all time, because that's kind of the goal of this question, I'm really, really proud of my Windgrace deck.
Yeah.
It's, like, before I built Windgrace, I was a really casual player. And then I built Windgrace, and I got so much better over that summer when that deck came out. Because I built Windgrace, and I'm, like, looking online to find different things I can do with it, and then I discovered the whole, like, land destruction thing I can do with it and return those lands, and I just put so much time and effort and money too into, like, tuning it and building it and cultivating it. And, like, there's not, like, a specific moment necessarily that, like, I'm super proud of, but man, that deck, if it weren't for that deck, I don't know if I'd be anywhere near a competitive player right now.
That's awesome, and that's what's really cool about when certain commanders come out too. That helps people. That it does. It helps people jump sometimes from a, just different tier, and even if you're just jumping from power level 6 to power level 8 or something like that, right? It changes your mentality. Like, the only problem I have with that type of thing, and it's not a problem necessarily, especially as a game store owner. It's not a problem at all because it helps me sell cards, but it turns the game into an arms race sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go from oh, we can build these $100 decks or $200 decks, and we get to have fun together, right? And then you have that one person or just that one thing happen like that where it's like, okay, well now we all have to keep up. And so like perfect example that I can give is like when I first moved here and I did get back into playing Magic up here with people, I started teaching Chrissy how to play, and so I went out because again when I moved up here, we talked about this before, I didn't have anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go buy the pre-con, like we talked about, that's how we met, right?
Yeah.
But I also bought one of the Commander collections.
Okay.
At the time, the one that had like Freyalise and it had Kalia and Duretti and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
I bought that, and I kept them pretty much as they were for a little bit, and then I started to upgrade them a little bit, but not much. Just put a couple cards in there, and so she would play the Freyalise deck, okay, and I would play one of the others, and there was times where like she was just learning. She beat me a couple times, just because that deck was actually really good. I mean, it's elf based, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, as I started playing with Jack and some other friends, and I started beating them, even with like pre-cons, now they're like, well, we got to start doing, buying some, more expensive cards and upgrading our decks. And then again, it turned into an arms race to the point where now I go from having the Freyalise pre-con and I turn it into Marwyn with like Umbral Mantle and Staff of Domination, where I can draw my deck, and just go off and win Craterhoof Behemoth, right? And once I start doing that, it became way too complicated for her because she didn't know all the cards and all that stuff, and she started to learn some of the pre-con stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm adding in these combos and these convoluted things that she doesn't understand, and she hasn't played since. Like she hasn't played in like 2 years now, or 3 years maybe even, because it just got to a point where it's like, well, this is too much for me, And it saddened me because like I loved that we would sit down sometimes and play, but I also understand her side of it, this isn't. She was doing it for me. She was doing it, to have a shared interest with me, but also at the same time, like I'm not going to force her. Or I can't. I mean, I wouldn't even if I could, but I can't force her to like, oh well, there's 20,000 unique cards. Can you start remembering all of them?
Yeah.
That's not fair to her.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the arms race because that is. That time when I got Windgrace and started like building it up, I was the person who was getting into an arms race because my buddy Marcus, who you met recently, they had built an Anala deck, which they built it really competitively, at least for our play group. I don't think it was CEDH tier, but it was like probably a 9 compared to the rest of our 6.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even if it's an 8 compared to your 6s, that's still a huge gap.
It's a big gap, you know? And so we were, like we were scrambling and like every time they would play, they would win at least 2, like probably 2 of the 5 games we would play that night. And it was just getting to the point where like, and they didn't have any other decks, right? So there were no other decks that they would play, and it was always this, and they would get hated off the board by everyone effectively. And that part of that was me figuring out how to deal with that deck. And I got Windgrace, and I'm like, man, this is such a cool card. I love this like whole lands matter thing. And I looked at different lands I could put in, and I looked at different strategies I could do, and I'm like, well, I need more instant speed removal so that I can get rid of the. There was a Merfolk wizard that gave him infinite turns, or gave them infinite turns when they had Anala. So I was like, I need more instant speed removal to be able to remove that before they can get infinite turns, and stuff like that. And it was, that progression just led me to being a much better player. And it's interesting because I eventually hit a cap of because I was also interacting with other people who played more competitively than me.
So I wouldn't say a cap. The word I like to use when it comes to that is a plateau.
Not a plateau in my ability. That's not what I mean.
No, but even with like certain decks, they just plateau off, right?
No, that let me finish my thought.
Okay.
Because that's not what I mean. I hit a cap of how competitive I wanted to be.
Ah.
Because like I know I could go more.
Mm-hmm.
Like I certainly could make, like, I have my most competitive deck is an Outlaw Polani Eggs deck, and that is like mine. Like, it's definitely CDH, but it's like in the lower tiers probably. I know
it's like a B tier one. Yeah.
I know it could be a B tier. The way I built it probably isn't quite there.
Yeah.
But like that's the most competitive that I want to go, and I'm probably never going to build a deck even that competitive ever again, because I want to do cool stuff. I want to do it in an optimized way, but I also want to be able to play it, and my play group doesn't play that competitive, you know. And I also don't want to be to the CDH tier of like my entire deck is like 1s and 2 drops and I have to win by turn 3, because that's not as fun for me. So I hit this sort of cap of where I wanted to be competitive, and I've found a good sweet spot since then, which, you know, is really interesting.
But one of the cool things about like the CDH, and so the guys like I mentioned earlier, like, you know, Kian and all those guys, right?
Yeah.
Is like we have the ability to win on those turns, but the frequency to which that happens is so low because, and again, so this is where we get into like what the main topic what's supposed to be is the difference between the amount of interaction. So a lot of your more casual decks, they are so focused on what they want to do, and every card in the deck is more about like I want to do this and I want to make this happen, that they don't have the interaction, and they have the higher CMC spells and stuff like you're talking about because they do the things that they want to do. Whereas in CDH, you know, in the stuff that we play, it's the majority of your deck is 2 drops and less. You know, like literally 80% of the playable cards or more, probably 85% of the playable cards, like not non-land cards, I mean, are 2 CMC and less, because you need to be able to play multiple spells in a turn to be able to interact with each other. So when we're talking about interaction, we're talking about things like counter spells, kill spells, things like that, right? You know, destroying spells, like people, you know, destroying artifacts and enchantments, all those different things. And then even some of your other stuff is like our mana rocks that we use. The difference between like a casual deck will play something like a chromatic lantern, right, to fix your mana. You're never going to see a chromatic lantern in a CDH deck.
It's true.
It costs 3 mana. Like,
it's too expensive.
We're not going to use a 3 mana spell just to add 1 mana and fix our colors. Like, there's other ways for us to do that are cheaper. You're going to see things like Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, you know, Grim Monolith, things like that. And the only reason Grim Monolith is even in there for a lot of decks is as a combo piece. Now you will see Basalt Monolith sometimes, which is a 3 mana rock, but again, it's because it's a combo piece with certain things. It's like if it doesn't combo what we're trying to do, then that's too much, right? And even also, again, like Grim Monolith is also, and Mana Vault, a lot of times we use them as what we call one shots. So we're playing it because it gives us a mana boost for a single turn, and we're usually using it for the turn.
Yeah, like Lotus Petal too.
Lotus Petal, yeah. See, like, yeah, we use Lotus Petal, right, in place of a land.
Yeah, it's effectively a treasure.
It's effectively, yeah, but we use that in place of a land. So like your casual decks, when we talk about like the amount of, you know, lands to spells, right? A lot of your casual decks are around 35, 36 lands, sometimes even higher. I know Windgrace runs more because it's land-based, right? But
yeah, I think I run 45 lands in that deck.
Yeah, some people, yeah, exactly.
But that's the toolkit.
Exactly. And he's also a 5 CMC commander, right? Whereas like a lot of our casual decks are less. Like your top tier commanders right now when we talk about top tier in CDH, it's called S tier. So it's like, you know, super good or whatever. You know, you do have a couple of the 5. So you have Kenrith, he costs 5 mana, but you have like Captain Sisse costs 3, Nozila costs 3, Thrasios Temna, each of those are 2 and 3. You know, they're partners. Like a lot of your your CMC costs on your top tier commanders. Like I have one. Again, it's a bottom tier CDH deck, but my Sig River Cutthroat deck, he costs 2 mana, but everything in the deck is flash. Like everything I get to play at instant speed. So, you know, it's like he's a non-assuming commander to a lot of people, but he's actually really good because he costs 2 mana. He's a 1/3, And then if any of my opponents lost 3 life that turn, I get to draw a card. So it's really good for me because things like where people will fetch, sometimes they don't have anything but a shock land to put into play. Well, they just lost 3 mana or 3 life. Also, if someone hits one of my opponents for 3, I get to draw a card, so that type of thing. Whereas, so again, 35, 36 lands and above is what casual's at. The majority of my decks are 30, 31, lands. And the reason why is because of the difference in the mana rocks that we use too. Again, talking about the Lotus Petal, Mana Crypts, things like that. We don't have to run as many lands because also our CMCs are lower. And it makes it to where the majority of our draws are going to be things that are the interaction and the things we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, another question I wanted to ask is,
Before we go away from the question you just asked, though, so I thought about, and not for any particular moment, but my favorite commander, and because I always go back to him and I build it. I've had literally probably 10 different iterations of him over time. Is Grand Arbiter Augustine IV.
Oh, okay.
It's
You're gross. I get it.
It is, yeah. So for those who don't know what he does, he costs 2 colorless, a blue and a white. My white spells cost 1 less. My blue spells cost 1 less. So if it's a multicolored spell, it costs 2 less. And then all of my opponent's spells cost 1 more. So he's he's usually building a stacks deck or taxing style deck. He is my favorite go-to. I've had so many iterations of him. So yeah, he's actually the first one that I built that competed with Nick really well. Chromat eventually became that at some point, but the first deck I actually built that I could compete with Nick was when I built Grand Arbiter. So that's kind of why I always go back to him.
Okay.
And Noah actually, so I wanted to throw out Noah again. Noah actually got me for my birthday 2 years ago. He had someone, an altar artist, do an extended art on it. This is before all the extended arts came out, and all this, where it was normal all the time. He had someone do an extended art on it. It's beautiful.
That's really cool.
It's one of those cards, again, I'm a shop owner, and I have my own decks, and I sell cards out of my deck all the time, to my customers, because I can replace the card later, whatever. That's one of 5 cards that I have in my collection, that you're never gonna be able to buy it. I don't care what y'all. Take that back. If you offer me $1 million for my Grand Arbiter, or if you offer me $1,000 for it, I'd probably sell it because Noah would understand at that point, and I'd just go back and get another one altered. But it would have to be so ridiculous that I couldn't pass it up. But yeah, it's gonna be almost impossible to get that card off me. So
yeah. So this next question is, what is your favorite theme or combo that you've built around?
Oh, I don't know if it's my favorite. Again, the Naya one, I brought that combo.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Chromat deck that I keep referring to, at one point I made it into Super Friends, and again, it used a card that I brought up earlier, which is Will of Sun and Moon. Mm-hmm. That card is super good, by the way, guys. For anybody who's out there that doesn't know what the card does, or I kind of explained it a minute ago. You can enchant any player with it. So you can enchant yourself and use it, the way I did, trickery. But let's say you have a graveyard-based strategy where you need things in your graveyard, like a Marin, or something like that, right? Where you want to do Reanimator or something. I just throw that on you, and it's your cards go to the bottom of your bottom of your library instead of your graveyard, and it can shut down total strategies. But in the Chromat deck, I would run Will of Sun and Moon, hit myself, Doubling Season, and then play Jace, Architect of Thought. So Doubling Season is a 5-mana enchantment that doubles the amount of tokens that you would produce, or also doubles the amount of 1/1 counters that get placed on something. When you play a Planeswalker, they enter the battlefield with loyalty counters. Okay? So Jace, Architect of Thought would come out. He's a 4-mana Planeswalker. He normally has 4 loyalty counters on him. He would come out with 8. His ultimate costs exactly 8 loyalty counters to use. His ultimate says that I choose a card from my library and I choose a card from your library, and I exile them and I can play them without paying their mana costs on the turn. Okay? Well, because of state-based effects and how things work, when I remove those 8 loyalty counters, Jace goes to the bottom of my deck. So my card I choose out of my library is Jace every time, and I can exile your entire library, and I can do that to everybody at the table.
God damn it!
So I just do that combo, and then I go pass the turn. If I don't do other things, like if I find other things in your deck to win or whatever, but usually I would just exile everybody's library and go pass, and they. So for those who don't know, if you're not a big Magic fan and you watch this for other reasons, if it goes to your turn, and you have to draw a card, at any point you can't draw a card because you don't have any left in your library, you lose the game.
Yep.
So I would just exile everybody's library and go, your turn.
That's funny. I like it. I like it. My favorite combo that I've built around is Marchesa of the Black Rose.
So the Grixis one.
The Grixis one.
Okay.
So back when I was playing Magic very casually and also playing a lot of Magic duels, I at the time Shadows over Innistrad just came out. And I was playing some shitty deck that I put together that I thought was really cool, and it always lost. And someone trashed me. Someone absolutely trashed me with this Rakdos brew that they had come up with, where the entire idea was steal your stuff with act of treason and then sacrifice it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I loved it so much that I built it myself.
Oh, yeah.
I built a shittier version of it, and it was so fun. And I played that a lot on Magic Duels. And then I started playing, I got more into EDH, and this was now after the Windgrace happened, and I started to get better. I wanted to relive that deck in EDH. And so I went to some Facebook groups that I was a part of, and I'm like, all right, guys, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it in EDH. Like, I want a commander that's relevant to it. I know I want at least Rakdos, maybe other colors. And one of the first people who commented, I don't remember their name, was like, you should play Marchesa of the Black Rose. Because if you put a 1/1 counter, on one of the creatures that you threaten, then that creature will come back to your field at the end step, and you'll keep it.
So real quick,
it won't go back.
Real quick, real quick. Look up Marchesa. Let's read it.
I'm gonna explain it.
Yeah, no, I want to give people an idea. So I'll do this. Marchesa of the Black Rose is one colorless, blue, black, red. So that's Grixis. Legendary human wizard. She's a 3/3. She has an ability called Dethrone. Whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, you put a 1/1 counter on it. Other creatures you control have Dethrone, so it gives all your creatures Dethrone. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So the really cool thing in the way Spencer is explaining this is he gives it the counter. So you're going to have to be attacking someone that has a higher life total than you, to give the Dethrone, or you have other ways to give it counters, right?
Yeah, I have a few other ways.
Right. So he steals my Sun Titan, let's just say, right? And sorry, my phone's going off. He puts the Dethrone on it. He attacks me with it. It does its thing, which is cool. So Sun Titan gets back a 3 CMC or less from your graveyard, puts on the battlefield. And then at the end of the turn, he's supposed to sacrifice it due to either,
normally, with the threaten effects, it actually would return to your field.
Right, but he could have something like a
Goblin Bombardment,
or Ashnod's Altar, or
Phyrexian Altar.
Yeah, anything where he could sacrifice it, right?
Yep.
Because at the time it died, he controlled the creature. It's going to hit my graveyard. It's going to see that ability at the end step. It's going to come back to him.
Yep. That's the whole idea of the deck. It's a little bit oppressive. It's so much fun though. It's such a cool combo, and it's everything I love about the steal your stuff for value, hit you with your own thing, and then get rid of it by sacrificing it for value. But then I also get to keep the creature on top of it. I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, like that's super cool.
So fucking awesome.
And even if you don't have her out, like even the other parts of the theme of the deck,
it still totally works because I can still steal your stuff and sacrifice it, which is still good. It's like, I'll still steal your Sun Titan, hit you with it for 6, and then get a thing back from my graveyard, and then sacrifice it for 2 mana with Ashnod's Altar.
Yeah.
Like, that's still an amazing play, even if she's not on the field.
Which is, like, in a lot of cases, especially on that more casual level, that's better than having a kill spell. That's better than having, like, a Doomblade.
Oh, way better.
Yeah, exactly.
Way better. You need more pieces in play to make it work, but when you have those pieces in play to work, it's really good. And then, but I've also taken it to further levels, and I've included some of my own creatures that I want to sacrifice and bring back. So, like, I have Plague Crafter, which whenever it enters the battlefield, everyone has to sacrifice a creature or Planeswalker, and if they can't, they have to discard. So I'll play that, everyone has to do that, and, like, I'll put a 1/1 counter on it with an Unspeakable Courage at instant speed.
And then you get it back.
And then I get it back. And the cool thing is Unspeakable Courage, great card in that deck. It's a 3-mana enchantment in black. I have to pay 3 life to put a 1/1 counter on a creature. Paying that 3 life gets me to lower life totals, which allows me to trigger that dethrone ability for Marchesa and all my other creatures.
That's awesome.
So, like, and because it's like it comes back at the end of turn, I can't, like, do it infinitely at that point.
Right.
But I get to do it once every turn cycle, or once every turn, not every turn cycle, every turn. So my turn.
Well, when it comes back on the end, it's technically, yeah. I mean, it's twice in the first turn you do it, like when you play it from your hand, because it'll come back at the end step, and then every time it comes back.
Yeah, so I can Plague Crafter 5 times before my next turn if I play it from my hand. Because play it, sacrifice comes back at my end step, sacrifice comes back at someone else's end step, sacrifice 3rd end step. Sacrifice 4th end step, untap.
This guy.
It's really fun, and
that's almost as good as a board wipe.
I have other cards that abuse the enter the battlefield to trigger. Like I have Solemn Simulacrum in that deck is great because I get the enter and the leave. I get I love Sepulchral and Molten Primordial in that deck.
Oh yeah, the black and red primordials.
Because I also run the blue one. I love Diluvian Primordial as well.
Oh yeah, that hits instant sorceries. Yeah.
So and then I get to do that from each person every turn. It's a fun deck. But yeah, that's my favorite combo that I've ever built.
But see, and again, so this also speaks to the difference between your casuals and your competitors, right?
So this would never fly in competitive.
So yeah, like he could easily be shut down, but this is the point I wanted to get to when I'm bringing this up, is competitive CDH is, and again, everyone has their different levels of fun, right?
Yeah.
It's super fun for me because I am on that competitive level. Like, for example, you brought up something earlier about how, like, your friend Marcus would get, like, hated out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to, because of my competitive nature, I used to get super offended by that, for a while, because I was like, dude, you guys aren't letting me play the game, blah, 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 right? But then as I thought about it more and I realized, especially from my competitive side, I was like, I take it as a compliment now. Because I'm like, if you guys want to take me out first, that means you think I'm the threat.
Yeah.
And so I try to take it as a compliment now and stuff. But going back to my point of what I'm trying to say with this is this would never compete on the competitive level, but that speaks also to the difference in, like, fun levels too. Like, because competitive EDH to a lot of people isn't fun because of the fact, like you said, someone can win on turn 2. Right? Or turn 3, stuff like that. You want to play, you're sitting down to play a game, you want to play out and play your cool spells and your interactions and things like that. Whereas us, who play in that CDH realm, right, we just want to play as many games as we can. Yeah. And that's why we like,
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, like, those games can also become very attrition-y and very drug out because of all the interaction that we have.
Yeah.
So there could be the 2-hour-long game, which is more casual. That's kind of what you're more used to. With casual games, you're going to have like an hour-long game lot. Sometimes we have 5-minute games. Sometimes we have 2-hour games because of the attrition, right? But also the cool thing about it is with competitive and why we like it, the 2-hour games are very, very rare. Like, the majority of our games are going to last like 20, 30 minutes, but we get to play so many games in a night because we, whereas you guys might only play like 2 or 3, something like that. We've played like 10, and it's cool because, every time you start a new game, you're starting with a new hand, you're starting with a new fresh, possibility to do your thing that you wanted to do. So that's kind of the difference too of why I like to play the CDH thing. The other reason is obviously too, being a store owner, I don't get to play that much. So if I do get to sit down for a game, I need it to be something that I can be done, if I need to be, kind of thing. So that's part of it too, because one of the things that is also a difference between casual and competitive is, let's say I sit down at a CDH pod and then people start coming in. I can easily just say I concede, and me leaving the game doesn't have as much of an impact on everybody else in the game as it would if, like, I sat down to casual, because you might have enchantments on my creatures that matter to you. You might have, like, some certain interactions, right? And if I get up and I leave, well, now those things that you used against me to try to help yourself, now you're hurt because I had to get up and leave. Like, does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Especially like in your Enchantress-based decks and things like that. Whatever it might be. So that speaks to the difference too between how casual, and there's different levels of casual, but how casual and competitive, compare to each other is. And that's what's great. It's still the same game. It's still Magic the Gathering. Like, it's still Magic the Gathering.
It's even still the same format.
Yeah, same format, right? But it's like, depending on all of those different levels, makes a difference between how all of those things matter. Yeah. So that's what's really cool, and that's what we kind of wanted to speak on today.
Yep. I was wondering if you had any questions like that before I give us one more.
I guess my biggest question to you, because you brought this up earlier a little bit, and so that's why it kind of plays into it, is like you said that you reached that cap, right?
Yeah.
What is your main, like, motivation or demotivation, even whatever, for wanting to just be like, I don't want to go above this? Like, you've spoken on it a little bit. Yeah. But but you answering that's also going to speak to why I do what I do, right? And I talked about it just a little bit now, but like for me, or I'll answer the question first. As I'm asking it, is like, I like the competitive side of it because I am a very competitive person. I like to be able to play quick games if I want to. However, I do miss the casual side, and that's why I'm making this new Marathon deck. Yeah. Right? I want to build something I can sit down with you guys, and play and not feel like I'm just going to shit all over you, or I'm going to get shit on completely because everyone's going to hate me out. I want it to be like, okay, we can play a game, whatever, right? But for you, like, what keeps you? I mean, it could be money motivated because you don't want to put the money in, buying certain cards like Mana Crypts and shit like that. They're $180, What is that, like, main motivator or demotivator from keeping you from, like, going up to that tier?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of pieces to it. For a while, it was money motivated because I wasn't, like, super into getting proxies. But, with the idea of proxies, money doesn't really matter that much, right? Because all of those mega expensive cards, I can just go over to Robbie and be like, here's $4, I want a Mana Crypt for this new deck. So, like, that doesn't matter as much for me.
As a disclaimer, just so you guys know, we do allow proxies in the store. We do ask that you own at least one copy of it. And the reason why we say it like that is because, again, in legal formats, you're supposed to have the actual cards, so, like, if we play, but we allow proxies, like, for, because, like, for myself, being a store owner, and I do have to sell my cards a lot of times, things like that, like, I have access to the cards, and there's a lot of them that I still own and have at least a copy of, or I can just go out and buy it tomorrow, whatever. But because I play competitive, I need, like, certain cards in each deck. Like, I need a Mana Crypt in each deck. I need a Mana Vault in each deck. Expensive. Right? And then that's super expensive, right? So what we do is we allow you to have a proxy, and then, like, what I, for myself, I keep a little binder that has the actual card in it. And it's like, if you guys want me to pull the actual card out and put it in, I can. But it keeps me from having to switch it between decks every time. Yeah. It's like, because I'm only going to play one deck at a time. I'm not playing two decks at a time. What's the point of me having multiple copies, if I'm just going to play the one deck at a time? So just to give a disclaimer on the proxies thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, it was partially money motivated, and even then, like, I also don't necessarily need to own one copy of Mana Crypt. Like, that just doesn't appeal to me, And I know, like, oftentimes it is do you own a copy of the card? And I do like that, except for when I'm looking at things like duels and Mana Crypt and stuff like that.
Well, and also, like, but you're also talking about playing, like, amongst your friends, like, in casual play groups and stuff. Yeah, like, that's different. That's different than, like, the deck that you actually play at your F&M where you're playing for like packs and different things like that. Yeah. So,
But so that was part of it. Another part of it is, and this is a lower part of it, but it matters still, in that. So when I built that Apopani deck, the super competitive deck that I had, when I built that, I was super excited about it. I really love the idea of that deck. It's a lot of fun for me to play and pilot. It was too competitive for my play group.
Yeah.
Right. And so I came to this, like, I don't want to play this every time because, you know, I don't want to just trash my friends every single game because it's not fun for them. But then also, like, I also want to play the deck. So I actually tuned it back a little bit for a while. I ended up putting it back to where it is now. And I just leave it for when I play against really high-powered people. And the idea is like, I came to that point, and it's just like I certainly could, and especially at F&M now at Slypatch, you know, I have people I can play that deck with, which is great. But also, like, in going into the most important point for me, it's like, there's not much further I can go with the part of Magic that makes me happiest. And the parts of Magic that makes me happiest is finding interesting, sometimes complicated interactions and making them work, making them tick. I like spinning my wheels. I like doing cool combos. I like doing that. And a lot of that in CEDH for me isn't as interesting. Now, one of the things is with Atla Palani, which is, I think, a CEDH deck for me, it is very complicated, and it has a cool interaction as far as I'm concerned. So that still, you know, scratches that itch. But a lot of those other CEDH decks that I've seen and looked at, they don't scratch that itch for me. And I also don't have as much, I don't have as much, there's not as much variety. Like, if I see a card that I want to build around, there's not anywhere of a guarantee that I can make it CEDH viable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I could, like, my Kodama deck, right?
Kodama, yeah.
I couldn't make that a CEDH deck. That's not CEDH viable. No. It really isn't. So that's what's kept me away from the CEDH side of things. Like, if I see a commander that's, like, CEDH viable, there is a possibility that I would make it CEDH, but I probably wouldn't because I'd want to play it.
Yeah. And no, that speaks, and it's also, again, why I'm building this casual deck, right? And where I'm trying to, I guess the old saying is, like, get back to my roots, right? Yeah. Is I already have my CDH decks, you know? I have my Anafinza, which is Hate Bears. I have my Gadok T, or not my Gadok T, I used to have Gadok T. I turned Gadok T into Anafinza, but I have a Grand Arbiter, which is, you know...
You have your new Saheeli deck.
The Saheeli deck that it stacks, you know, based and stuff like that. I have the blue-black flash, you know, deck that we talked about, right? So I have decks that are on that level, and I agree with you, because one of the problems with CEDH is the format gets figured out very fast. You know, any competitive format, it doesn't matter if it's legacy, modern, you know, stuff like that.
Even standard.
They get figured out really fast, right?
Yeah, and that takes the mystery and the variation out of it for me.
But this speaks to, and this is what I was going to talk to you about with that, is like my blue-black flash deck, for example, that I brought up. Okay, it's nowhere on any radar.
Yeah.
I technically, because I play blue-black, I could play the Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation combo, which is like a big combo in CDH. I specifically don't, because I don't want to play that combo. I had it in there at first. I did have it in there at first. But then I was like, well, I can't play naturally. I can't naturally play Thassa's Oracle at instant speed. So I was like, well, this doesn't fit the theme of my deck, you know? So I was like, I took it out. But I mean, it still competes with everybody because of all the interaction it has. It has a lot of counter spells, a lot of kill spells, you know, stuff like that. Everything's in instant speed, so it has a lot of interaction. So that's why I still have the deck, you know, and it's on that CDH level. It's lower tier, but it's there. But yeah, I realized, you know, that what I like about CDH too is, and I did this with every competitive format that I ever played in, even when I was playing Standard, I would play things like, back in Return to Ravnica, I had a 5-color X spells deck. It's just, I played Rakdos' Return, Aurelius Fury, Sphinx's Revelation, all of them in the same deck.
Oh,
right?
That's funny. I like it.
And so, it was not anywhere near what the top tier decks were.
Yeah.
I try to build decks to compete against them. That's what I love about it, and why I enjoy playing it is I build the not top tier decks. I had Thrasios Tymna for a while, and I would play it, and I would win with it. It was fine, but I'm same as you. When it comes to that, it got boring as hell. Because, like, literally, it's like, okay, I'm trying to find my Hermit Druid or this Cephalid Breakfast combo, and I'm going to do this, and it's like, all right, well.
Which, even when I played Atla Palani a lot, Atla Palani is, it goes down the same line of play pretty often, depending on what I get, right? Because it's the eggs deck, I could get Kiki Conscripts, or I could get Boonweaver Pattern of Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter which combo I run into, once I get that combo, the game's over or someone interacts.
Right.
Right? And then it goes down the same line of play. Like if it's Kiki Conscripts, the game just ends.
Right.
But if it's Boonweaver Pattern, I have to go get Karmic. I have to go get Revelark. I have to go get then another combo to then win the game, which is sometimes Kiki Conscripts.
Right. Yeah, and so, I mean, I feel what you're saying there, and again, like I said, I'm trying to scratch that itch, like I said, of like going back to my roots and trying to build more casual decks. It's just, like, the biggest problem that I have, and that's why I was going to like employ you, and in a sense to help me build this deck, especially because it's also 1/1 counters matters, and you just built Kodama recently.
I did.
So some of those cards,
yeah, I'd love to.
Will be shared. But I also want you to help me reel it back, like talk about because naturally it's like, okay, 1/1 counters matters. Like first card I want to put in there is Doubling Season, and this, and it's like I can put a couple of those cards and it still stay on the casual level, but it's like I gotta make sure I don't like.
Well, if
gear it up to 10.
If you want to be in the like, and this might even be good to put on the podcast, because talking about that is like, yeah, you can put a lot of those things in, but like I don't know how much is too much. Here's what I do, is and this some of these numbers are going to be stolen from the Command Zone episode on deck building. I do 10 to 12 ramp spells, 10 to 12 draw spells, 10 to 12 removal spells.
I mean, right there is half your deck.
That is.
Yeah.
But among all of those, I try to fit in as many draw card and put 1/1 counters on, or draw cards based on 1/1 counters as I can. Or
creature does this.
Or creature does this. I'll put in fight spells that put in 1/1 counters as well. Inscription of Abundance is a great one that I put in my Kodama deck. It is 2 mana, you can fight something, gain life, or put 2 1/1 counters on a creature, or you can kick it and do all 3.
Yeah, so modal spells and things like that.
Modal spells are great for that kind of thing. And so, yeah, that is half of the deck already, but then the other half, hard into that theme.
Yeah.
As hard as
because when you
possibly
talk about,
can.
when you talk about modal spells, for example, one that I'm definitely putting in the deck is Dramoka's Command.
Oh yeah.
Because it has add a 1/1 counter as one of the things, and then it has all these other things where it's like prevent damage or make destroy an enchantment and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and so because it's destroy an enchantment, I'd consider that a removal spell.
But it's also
But it also fits into your theme, and it has that dual purpose, right?
Yeah.
So I do things like that, and I'll do ramp spells that fit the theme too. I can't think of one specifically that was ramp in Kodama that fits the theme. One that would fit that I don't have yet is Sword of the Animist.
Okay.
Because when you hit someone with it, with the equipped creature, you get to go get a land. So it's Kodama's ability on Kodama. So then whenever I hit someone with Kodama, I get to go get 2 lands instead of just 1. If I don't have one, but if I had Sword of War and Peace, I might consider that a draw spell in that deck.
I can't remember how to spell the card. It's called I think it's called Miles Anima or something like that. Here, just type in Mael real quick. I think that's how you spell her name.
Here.
Horrible.
Actually.
There you go. Or Maya's area, not Maya herself, but this is another card that I'm wanting to put in the deck.
Oh yeah.
Because it's an alternate win condition. So this is a 3-mana enchantment. It costs Naya, which is red, green, white. At the beginning of my upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Then, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you do that if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control one with 10 or greater. Then you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater. So that's actually one of my goals in the deck.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Like I'm like I'm gonna do something fun.
Are you
like
gonna
that.
put Inferno of the Starmonts in there?
No, what is that?
Okay, so it's one of the dragons from the Forgotten Realms set.
Okay.
It is 6 mana, flying haste, 6/6. Mm-hmm. It has fire breathing, which is, for those who don't know, pay 1 red and it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And then when when its power becomes 20, you deal 20 damage to any target.
No, I haven't thought about that one. Maybe that might actually fit.
I mean, because you're putting counters on.
What I am putting in though is like there's I forgot the name of the card. It costs 10 and 1 green. It's something protector. It's like Sylvan Protector or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's a green creature, but it's a 10/10. But it costs 1 less for each creature your opponents control.
Okay.
And so I want to play that guy, or it's like Primeval Protector or something like that. Anyway, so he's going in, and then I'm going to put a couple of the Eldrazi in because they already start with
big power,
right? Yeah. And then try to add counters to them. Yeah.
So like if you want to go big and stompy, I'd probably lean more towards like the 12 ramp side, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of like the 10 side of things.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've got things like Finhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, Absent Pilgrim, like, my creatures that are going to also lean towards that ramp, for sure. But yeah, like, I want to win a game with that. Like, that's the whole reason I'm building this deck.
Really?
And why I made
I like it.
So he said Naya, right? So I went and looked up Naya cards before I even thought about what commander I wanted to use, right?
Yeah.
Because if you go back, Mael herself could also fit into the theme, obviously, because she lets you put a creature on the board that's power 5 or greater, right? Mm-hmm. Which is cool, But I was like, nah, Mael is her own thing. It's a different thing. I was like, I want to win with that card. What creature can I use? And so the reason why I like Marath is because he enters the battlefield with counters equal to the mana you spend on him. So that includes when you start paying commander tax, right?
Yep.
And then you can pay X to remove counters from him to do different things. You can either shoot creatures, or you can make tokens, or you can put those counters on something else. So that's why I made him the commander, was to try and get to a 20 power creature.
That's so funny. I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'd run, and like you said, like I don't know how many things of that I would run. I'm like, honestly, anything that increases the number of counters, do it. Like doubling season, Mowu, Hardened Scales.
Hardened Scales is
like literally all of that.
Yeah.
Do all of it, and then like run Cathar's Crusade, run.
Yeah.
What's another one that I can? Think of?
There's a lot.
Like there's tons.
There's like one that's called like Knight of the Juniper Order or something like that.
Yeah.
Where when a creature enters the battlefield, it gets a 1/1 counter, and he gets a 1/1 counter.
Yeah.
So that that's another thing.
Run Champion of Lambhold.
Yeah.
Champion of Lambhold.
Well, there's like Gyre Sage in there too that has
Gyre Sage,
the evolve ability, right? So like as I play bigger creatures, it'll get bigger too.
Definitely run as a ramp spell. Definitely run Incubation Druid. It's a 0/3 that has adapt for 5, but if it has a counter, it doesn't tap for just 1 mana. It taps for 3.
Yeah, I need to put
one. I
need to put one in, but I just don't have one right now.
Yeah,
it's in my dollar box somewhere, and I just haven't looked for it. But
But yeah, no, like, and I love helping people work through those ideas because Max has some awesome ideas for decks, but he doesn't necessarily know how to put them together. So I usually help with that part. And right now he's actually working on a Licia deck that is a threaten and sack deck, kind of like my Marchesa deck, because of what we were talking about the other night.
Yeah.
and I've helped him build a changeling tribal deck. We like to call it Dolphin Tribal. And it's with Morophon at the helm, and it's all these lords of different tribes and changelings.
That's pretty cool.
It's lords of every tribe imaginable. Like, he runs Crucible of Fire. Dragons get +3/+3. And all of his changelings are dragons.
That's awesome.
And then he also runs things like Arcane Adaptation to turn all of his other lords into then dragons. Or if he's got a lot of zombie tribal stuff going on, he'll do it to make them all zombies. Like, that's that deck. And that was so fun to build with him.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, that's what I miss, and that's what I love the most. And one of the things about being a shop owner that I love, because I don't get to play as much, is I love to build decks. And
it's so fun.
It's just that my biggest problem is because I'm so competitive, it's hard for me to scale it back sometimes.
I had to train myself to scale back.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, I kept getting better and better until I hit that cap that I was talking about earlier with eggs. And then I had to train myself to scale myself back. And now that I've gotten to that point in the last couple of months, I've built like 7 new decks, and I don't care that they're less powerful because they're just fun.
Oh no, man! Kodama looked like it was pretty beastly the other night.
Okay, yeah. Kodama is broken as shit. It's probably a power level 8. I'd say, and it's really, really fun. But,
it looks super fun.
I also have, like, my zombie tribal deck that's, like, probably a 6. But it's also, like, really fun, so I don't care. Exactly. And I have that that token copy deck that's probably a 4.
No, I know, but that thing is so fun, dude.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
it's
so
really bad, but it's so fun.
Oh my gosh.
And then I have this deck, Calamax the Stormsire.
The copy guy?
Yeah. He can work really well. Like, he can go off, but also there are points in which, like, I don't have the pieces left. I don't have a lot of win cons in that deck. So oftentimes it ends up me spinning my wheels for several turns in a row, and then I, like, have nothing left in my library. And then I just lose.
Right, well, I did a lot of things.
But, like, even in that situation, I love that just, like, I'm going to copy this spell 3 times and it's going to be great, and then I have 30 cards in my hand and I lose, and even that is fun for me, which I'm so happy.
You should call that the hamster deck. Because you're running on the hamster wheel, and sometimes you just spin off of it.
I call it Calamaximum Overdrive.
That's awesome.
That's the name of that deck.
So the great thing about Magic, and as you guys will notice and see, and moving forward, I think we are gonna, we try to go with different things, but I do want to start doing a little bit more Magic because it is what we focus on at Slypatch. The great thing is like, even as much as we've talked about today, there's so much more we could talk about. And
yeah, I could sit here and talk to you for 7 hours just about decks that I've built and decks I want to build.
Exactly. And so, we're trying to, make sure that, we don't make the podcast too long.
Yeah.
So, you said you had one more question though, real quick in the main or in the campaign that.
Oh no, I was thinking about another one, but it's gone now.
Yeah, but we'll save it for next time. So hopefully, we gave you guys some insight into things. Again, the other thing that we do is, we want to have the interaction in the comments. So,
answer those 3 questions that we asked.
Answer the questions that we asked, but also ask some of your own so that we can either answer them in the comments or even in future episodes where we talk about things.
I know both of us really want to potentially add a segment where either a segment or an entire episode where we just talk about questions that you guys have asked, but we haven't had enough comments yet to really be able to do that kind of thing.
Not yet. We're getting there.
In a whole segment, but we would really like to do that. So we definitely appreciate that interaction. Even if you don't have anything to add, maybe it's sharing it with a friend, because the more people that this gets out to, it means the more people will comment, and we get to have that community interaction that we love so much.
Absolutely. So that's it for the campaign for this week. For now.
Yeah, I'm full of meat and potatoes.
We may have some more meat and potatoes of a certain variety. For the same thing. Coming up soon, like I said.
Yep.
But we're gonna get into this week's mains. So Spencer, what's your main for this week?
Well, my main for this week is that my buddy Marcus. I've talked to about him a few times. Sorry, still getting used to that, but I've talked to them a few times, or talked about them a few times, and they just started. We had a session 0 last week for a new D&D campaign, and it's going to be set in the world of Runeterra, which is the world of League of Legends. And I just started watching Arcane to like sort of learn about the world and stuff. And I'm playing a Warforged divination wizard. And I'm very excited about it. It's very cool. He's got a hex tech core in him, and I can't remember his name, but I remember. Oh, his name's a Ronin.
Ronin.
His name's a Ronin. He's a 6'2" robot with that.
Which is also different for you because in most campaigns, don't you play? Usually play. No, that's not you. Somebody in the group plays almost all females exclusively.
I do that a lot, but not exclusively. Brad almost exclusively plays female characters. No, I have a couple male characters that I've played over the years, but it's predominantly female.
Yeah.
But three of my current characters are male, which is different for me.
That's true because the one that we're a part of, I forgot.
I have Tradoom Grisk, who's a Vidalcan gunslinger, and I have
and a war profiteer.
He's also a war profiteer. I have Ronin, who's new, and I also play in my Star Wars game. I was telling you guys about him. He's a Gigarin named Sunzi.
I don't know why, but every time I hear that word, like giggity, like that's all I can think of. Like,
he's a big, tall, white, furry dude.
He's a Gigarin,
he's got a big orange lightsaber.
His type is a Gigarin, so like all I can think of is like.
Have I showed you a picture of Gigarins yet?
No.
I'll have to do that.
Here, we'll look at it after the thing. Yeah. But I hear Gigarin, and all I can think of is Quagmire just walking around giggity.
But yeah, I have a few of those. But I also currently, we have a drop-in, drop-out game that we sometimes play called Aspia, and each of the people in like our core friend group have many characters, and we each have like a continent that we DM for.
Okay.
So it's kind of like interactive, and people go to different places, and different people get to DM in that world. I have too many characters, and most of them are female. I have a warlock named Trinity. I have. It's been so long since we've played any Aspia. I have a monk. I have all kinds of characters. And then, what's the other? Oh yeah, I don't have a fourth character that I'm playing immediately right now because I DM that fourth game. So
you play a lot of characters.
I play a lot of characters. A lot of them are female though. Yeah. I have a sort of DMPC, not quite. But I have an NPC that's following around the party, and she's a girl, so there's that.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
It's a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this game because I've never been invested in League of Legends, not very interested in MOBAs, but the world of Runeterra is really cool so far. So I'm excited to try it out.
That's awesome.
So, what is your main this week, Tyler?
So my main this week, and again, we talk about how we are all about the realm of nerdiness, and we brought it up a couple of different times about how you can be a nerd or a geek. We talked about this last episode, right? Depending upon all kinds of things. So I'm super excited. My friend Jack Taddy has been in a fantasy baseball league with a group of guys for a long time. I've had the pleasure of meeting most of them. I haven't met all of them, but I've had the pleasure of meeting most of them. And ever since I've heard about it, like even when like Jack, would do his drafts and different things like that, I get in and like talk to him about it. Like he doesn't need my advice. He's really good at it anyway. But I told him, I was like, dude, if a spot ever opens up, I want it. And The unfortunate side of things is the person who is leaving the group is a buddy of ours named Chesko. Chesko, I love you, buddy. Miss you. But Chesko's just got a lot going on in life and doesn't have time for it, unfortunately. So I'm getting to take over Chesko's team because they're in a dynasty league. So like you, what I have to do actually after we got the podcast is I have to actually accept the invite to the league. I got to go in and I have to narrow my roster down to 15 players because we only get to keep 15 each year. Got to narrow it down to 15 players and then figure out who I'm going to cut, and then also look at who I might be drafting or trying to get out of free agency after the league starts and everything. But they did the main draft for this one last year, so I wish I could have been a part of that because that would have been super cool to like just build my team from scratch. But Chesko's knows what he's doing, so he's got some good players on the roster. Also going to see if I can't pull off a couple of trades or something before it happens to see if anybody wants to, hook me up. But maybe I can play off the, I'm new, guys, I need some help. Probably won't. I know it won't work on Jack, but that's okay. Maybe the other guys don't.
Hopefully he doesn't call you out on your bullshit.
Oh, I know, right? He'll be like, oh, no, don't
Also,
help
if any of you see this, it's just a joke. He's totally new.
Totally new. Don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely not.
But anyway, but I'm super excited to get into the Fantasy Baseball League. Of all the fantasy sports, because I do fantasy football too every year and stuff. I think I love baseball the most for a couple of different reasons. One, the way the scoring systems work is completely different, to football. Because like in football, like you can just have somebody goes off one week and like you just have no chance, like or the person playing you just has no chance. Whereas in baseball, it's not. It's hard for that to happen. Like someone can have a really good game, like they get hit for the cycle, or hit a couple home runs in a game or something like that. That's not necessarily going to just make it to where it's impossible for you to win. Whereas like you have in fantasy football, you have like a wide receiver go off and have like a 300-yard receiving game and like 3 touchdowns or something. It's like he scored so many points. You just like it doesn't matter what the rest of your team does. You're just not going to catch up. So so I'm really excited for that, and also the longevity of the season too. Because with football, you only have like 17 weeks, and actually, that's in a season, and until you get to the playoffs, it's like 13 weeks, and you can also have things like where one guy gets injured, and now like your whole team is shit because that was like your superstar in fantasy football. In baseball, it's like that guy goes down. There's players that are at least close enough in the abilities. It's just things like that I'm super excited for.
All right, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, so fantasy sports this week is my thing. And you could answer and just be like, hey, we're in the podcast. You want to be on the podcast?
Well, we're almost done.
That was our friend Brad. Or mainly his friend, but I can call him my friend now.
Yeah, you can call him your friend.
Yeah.
He's your friend.
I like Brad.
Brad's a cool dude. Well, that concludes our mains, and we're going into the cooldown for today. And I just got to say, it's a beautiful day outside, and I'm, excited to build more decks soon.
Oh, man,
got so many things on the docket, and I'm just glad to be here with you guys. And we always, of course, hope that you have a wonderful, safe, happy, healthy day and week. We look forward always to seeing you around next week, and we look forward to that comment, man. We want to see you interacting with us because this is about a conversation between us fucking nerds.
That's what we're gonna bring up in the cooldown. I'm gonna reiterate is, we've had some great support for the podcast.
It's been awesome.
Slacked off a little bit, we haven't had as many views. We get on you guys. But, we want those comments because we want to talk about the things you guys want to talk about. Like, we're going to always divert back to Magic because it's the number one thing at the store and stuff like that. So, on those weeks where we're not sure, like today, for example, originally we were supposed to record yesterday. We're supposed to do the Star Wars. Me and Spencer got down here in my basement. And we're like, what the hell are we talking about today?
Magic?
Magic? Yeah, we can do magic. We can do magic,
We can always talk about magic.
Exactly.
It's not too hard for us.
Yeah. So, but I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. And as Spencer said, love you guys. Stay safe. And hope to see you in the comments or, on the next show. So,
love you guys. Peace.